Hi, my name is Allie. I'm a 17-year-old author, and here are all of the tips that I wish I knew when I was writing my first book. So whether you're 70 or you're 10 writing your first book, these tips will apply to you and even to other people who are experienced. They're just some things that I've compiled through my journey of being a writer. So before we begin, hi again, I'm Allie. I'm a 17-year-old author in high school, and I wrote these two books before I turned 17, and then I also have an unpublished children's book. Currently, I'm writing my fourth book, which is a summer mystery novel. I will be using these tips as well in my new book. So come along for the ride, don't get stressed out, and just relax. Here are the 20 tips that every writer should know before writing their book. So number one, you should start messy. Basically what that means is that your first draft does not have to be perfect. When I was writing, I was spending all of my time trying to outline my book and make sure it was perfect, even though in the process, after you finish your book, you're going to go back and make edits. You might not even like a specific paragraph in the book. You might get rid of it completely. Things like that, don't worry about until you finish the book. Again, your first draft can be messy, and it should be. Number two is know your why. Exactly, why are you writing this book? Are you writing it to entertain someone? Is it a nonfiction book? Are you trying to inform someone? Or are you just doing it for yourself? Basically, when I was in 7th grade, I had this idea for a book. I remember sitting down at my computer in 7th grade, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the best book idea I've ever came up with. I'm making this into a novel, and that's it. So basically, with the help of 20 of my classmates, I was able to turn this book into reality. I just wanted to write this book for myself. I didn't even want to make this like a publicly known book until I published it, and I wanted others to read it. But then with this book, at this point I had so many readers and I was just writing for other people. However, at the end of the day, I did have to tell myself that I was writing for myself and not for other people, and that's what you should do. You don't want to do something that someone else is forcing you to do. So at the end of the day, I always want to tell myself that I'm writing what I want to write. Number three is outline a little. Even a loose roadmap can help, where basically you can just like grab a piece of paper, write down the conflict in your story, write down the plot. What are the characters like? Is this a mystery book? Is this a romance book? What do you want this book to look like? Just grab a piece of paper, open a Google Doc, and just tell yourself what this story is. Again, this can be a messy outline. It doesn't matter. Most of my outlines are messy anyway. Number four is create characters you love, especially your main character. When you're writing a character, that character is most likely going to be with you for like 40,000 words. You don't want to create a character that you're gonna hate and then not want to write about. So I have actually been through that. I just wrote a book that was 33,000 words, and I ended up hating that book. I hated the characters, I hated the plot. I still have that book, but I'm working on a new work in progress. I honestly think that's because I wrote characters that I hated, and I ended up just hating the book as well. If you hate a character, again, there is a possibility that your readers won't like them too. So if you create a character that you love, there's a good chance that your readers will like them too. Number five, conflict is key. If there's no conflict, there is literally no story. Even if it's a romance book, you still need a conflict to create the story. Even though that conflict could be super big, like someone, hiding a dead body, or that could even be just like a love triangle. There should be a conflict in your book so that people can reach that climax and then find that resolution and finish your book. Number six is write what you personally want to read, not what other people want to read. So for an example, I am a mystery author. However, most of my readers like reading romance. I started writing romance because I knew that my readers liked romance. However, I didn't want to write romance. I wanted to write mystery. It did take a long time, but I did realize that I truly do want to write mystery and not romance. So I had to kind of pick my battles and tell myself that I'm writing for myself and not for other people. Again, your passion will show through at the end of the day. For number seven, this is also a tricky one if you are a high school student or someone still in school. Don't overthink your first line. So for me, the first line of my book, or also known as the hook, that's my favorite part of the story because it can really grab the reader into reading your book. Don't spend 5 hours trying to figure out what that first line is. Remember, you can always go back to it later. You can even fix it when you are editing your first draft. Number 8 is set small goals. This could be like as simple as writing 100 words a day, or, you know, creating an outline by this date, or writing this amount of pages. Just set small goals. Again, what you don't want to do is burn yourself out, because then you won't want to write this book. I've done that before, where I forced myself to write like 3 pages a day, every single day, no breaks. You know, I was going to school, I was coming home, I was doing sports. I literally had no time, and I was still forcing myself to do these things, when I should have just set small little goals that I could have accomplished instead. I feel like that would have saved me so much time, energy, and just mental time that I could have used for other things. Number 9 is don't force yourself to write when you don't want to. If you force yourself to sit down and write at the same time, the same place, the same amount of words, you're gonna burn yourself out. And at the end of the day, you're not gonna wanna write anymore. And I promise you, I have been there. Again, like I just told you. So there were some times where I forced myself to sit down and write, and I just didn't want to anymore. So in order to fix that, don't force yourself to write every single day. There are times when I go literal weeks without writing, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, I personally know that I will get that book done, even if it takes years. Number 10 is find your writing space. That could be your kitchen table, your bedroom, your bed, or even the library. Sometimes I'll find myself sitting at the library and writing my book, or I'll sit at like a cafe and write my book. But there are some times where I just want to sit at my desk or in my bed and write, and I'll write like 800 words in 2 hours, and I'll feel amazing. Number 11 is to remind yourself that editing will come later. There are so many times where I've sat down and there was like one sentence in my book that I really didn't like, and I just wanted to keep redoing it, but I could have just gone back to that later. You know, I didn't have to sit down and try to figure this one sentence out when I could have just saved that to the end of my book and fixed it later. So basically at this point, you just want to silence your critical thinking and like go back to that specific error that you have later. And then I think it's number 14, either 14 or 13. Writer's block is normal. If you don't know what writer's block is, basically it's a time period in a writer's life where they're just not as imaginative as they usually are, and it might be harder to come and sit down and write their book. Again, that's totally normal. That happens to me like all the time. Most important thing that you want to do is try not to burn yourself out. Don't write when you have writer's block, because that story is just not going to go well. I say that from experience. I think this is number 16, but always have like a notebook or like your notes app on standby just in case you have any ideas. I'm gonna tell you a funny story really quickly, but there was one time when I was at my mom's friend's lake house, and basically I was paddleboarding at her lake, and I was literally in the middle of this lake. It was like 30 feet deep, and I had this amazing idea for a book. And when I tell you I swam to the other side, like everyone at this lake probably thought I was insane, okay? But I had this idea for a book. I didn't have my phone. I was like, I need to write this down. And in 5 minutes, once I got to the other side of the lake, I wrote it down in my dad's phone. And I still have that note somewhere. I think it's still on my dad's phone. But you always just want to have something, because any of your ideas could come to life, so you always want to keep something on standby just to like write down, you know what I'm saying? And then number 17, your title can wait. You don't have to sit down and not write anything yet and just sit at your computer and think, oh my gosh, I need to write my title. No, you don't. You can wait. You can do that at the end. You can do that in the middle. Whenever you have the idea for a title, you can come up with it. Don't stress yourself out on the title. You want cliffhangers. Whether that's writing a cliffhanger at the end of the book or writing one like at the end of a paragraph or a chapter, your readers will want that. That's how you get people to be hooked on your book. Also, when you write your first book, you're gonna have high expectations for yourself. You're gonna want this book to be the best thing you've ever written, right? But in reality, unfortunately, that's just not how life goes. So for an example, if you've ever read my book, A Girl Named Ivy, basically, if you look into it, I'm gonna show you right now, there are some formatting errors, there are a few grammatical mistakes. That was because I pressured myself so much, and I really wanted this to be like a perfect book, and I literally had no clue what I was doing. So yeah, you will not know what you're doing in like your first and your second book. For your third and your fourth and whatever, how many ever you go, you will figure out how to do things. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. My 2 books, What Went Wrong Last Summer and A Girl Named Ivy, are both available in the description below, and they're also available in my Linktree. Again, these are both mystery books, so if you're that type of person, you should definitely read them. If you are looking for a publishing company to publish through, I highly suggest Amazon KDP, which I believe I mentioned that earlier. It's literally the best publishing company that I've ever learned about and actually used. If you are a writer who's looking for a self-publishing platform, I highly suggest going through there and just learning about what they can do. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had an amazing time coming and sitting down with me yap for like 15 minutes. Also, if you want to follow me on my other social media platforms, I'm going to put them over here in some fancy font. They're also available in the description below. Have an amazing day. I love you, and keep writing.